You're listening to ฝึกฟังภาษาอังกฤษชิลๆกับเจ้าของภาษาโดยครูโรซี่สวัสดีค่ะทุกๆคนวันนี้โรซี่มีเรื่องมาเล่าให้ฟังว่าทำไมโรซี่ถึงรักที่จะเป็นครูเชิญรับฟังได้เลยค่ะ Hi everybody, so today I'm going to be talking about why I love being a teacher. So I chose to speak about this topic because 2 or 3 days ago was Teachers' Day. So actually I found out that it was Teachers' Day in Thailand, and when I knew it was Teachers' Day, it made me question myself about why do I love being a teacher?So when I thought about the reasons why I love being a teacher, I thought it would be an interesting topic for you listeners to learn about why I love teaching. Maybe some of you are a teacher yourself. If you are a teacher yourself, then maybe you can connect with some of the things I say, or you may disagree. I'm not sure. Hopefully you will love teaching for, possibly the same reasons that I do. And if you're not a teacher, then maybe it'll be interesting for you to know why people love teaching. So I thought I would share this topic for you all today. So hopefully it will be interesting.So just a slight background then with regards to me being a teacher.Actually, when I was younger, when I was at school, I actually actively thought to myself I would never be a teacher. I remember thinking to myself, gosh, I would hate to be a teacher because students are so naughty. And in my class back then, we had lots of naughty students. And I remember thinking, God, it must be so exhausting.And tiring standing up in front of a class and having to teach a group of naughty students. And I also thought it would be boring. Those were my thoughts back then when I was younger. And it wasn't until I went to university and I started learning Thai language that it was back then when I thought to myself, oh, maybe I would like to be a teacher. The reason for this was that I thought to myself, gosh, learning a second language is so challenging. And I realized how important the role of a teacher is in inspiring and motivating students. So I thought to myself, maybe this would work for me. And I considered it a few times. And then it wasn't until I graduated that I thought to myself, okay, I have my degree in Thai language and Southeast Asian studies, that I thought to myself, okay, I should go back to Thailand and go back and live and really immerse myself in the culture. And so I thought, okay, right, this is the time for me to be a teacher. So I did a course where I trained to be an ESL teacher. So ESL stands for English as a Second Language. So I did this course where I learned how to be a teacher in English. That was where my journey began. So that was 7 years ago that I finished that course. Just over 7 years ago. And so since then, I have been teaching for the last 7 years. So today I'm going to share some different reasons why I love teaching so much. By the way, just to add that teaching, I'm not saying it is the perfect job. I'm just saying that this is why it's the perfect job for me.Okay, so let's begin with the first reason. So the first reason for me is the friendship. Okay, so for me, I tend to teach adults. I have taught children and I still do teach some children. But for me in general, 95% of my students are adults. And for me, that works well for me personally, as I'm someone that I like to connect with my students, and for me, my students are not just my students. They are almost like my friends. And when I say friends, I don't mean exactly like my close friends where I share my secrets and tell them all of the details of my life. It's not like that. It's more like that I have a nice that I have a nice compatible relationship with them where we do share things. I mean, students, because we talk about so many different topics, especially when it's a one-on-one class, I really do get to know my students, and they tell me stories, and then we share ideas. So all of these things, it's almost impossible not to learn about the students, and it's almost impossible not to have them as your friends. So it's this relationship that's really special to me. And yeah, it definitely is motivating for me that I know, okay, I have a class with this student and I know like this about them, and I know their background, and they've told me about their family, their work, and all of these things. And so it's not just like a student, it's not any student, it's them with their life story that, yeah, lots of them do share with me, which is very, very interesting. So for me, yeah, just this relationship is definitely a big motivator for me. Also, studies have shown actually that teachers who genuinely care about their students, they have a significant impact on the students' attitudes, on their motivation and behavior. So for me, it's definitely lovely to know that I am helping to motivate and to inspire these students. Maybe not all of them, but even some I'm happy with. So, as much as I try to inspire and motivate all of my students, but yes, hopefully they feel inspired, hopefully. So that's the main reason. So leading on from my relationship with my students, this is to do with helping people. So since I see them as my friends, I just want to help them as much as possible. And even if I don't have maybe a good relationship with them, I really, really enjoy helping people, because it's such a good feeling to see people learn and to gain joy from this beautiful thing. So I'm able to gain pleasure from seeing them overcome obstacles, from seeing them overcome frustrations. Like when they first start learning, you can see them frustrated that they want to speak and they can't. And it's these kind of things that it's so nice to help people and to see them grow. Also, obviously, English is it's a very important language, let's say. And so the idea that my help can help students get maybe a better job, that they can develop in their workplace, that they could maybe move abroad, all of these things is definitely lovely to see, to know. Like, I remember a student told me a few students have told me how they've got a new job, they've done really well in an interview, they've been promoted, all of these things. It's just amazing to see. So that has to be, yes, one of the biggest reasons why I love being an ESL teacher. Yeah, helping people 100%. Yeah, and like I said, just opening up new doors. The students are able to open up new doors and improve themselves. So that's just always so satisfying to see. So very much related to that is, it's a job with a deep sense of purpose. So as a teacher, I believe I have a reason for doing what I'm doing. There are maybe some people that don't feel like that. Maybe they have a job where they wonder, what actually am I doing in my job? But for me, I feel like I have a true purpose. So it helps bring value and meaning to my life. And that has to be a thing that definitely motivates me, is the idea that, it's definitely adding meaning to my life. Okay, so next, I would say one of the other main reasons about why I love being an ESL teacher is that I can get to know other cultures. So obviously living in Thailand and speaking Thai, I've learned so much about Thai culture, and I'm still also learning, which is just amazing. I love constantly growing, constantly learning things. So as well as Thai culture that I've learned about, I've also learned about so many different cultures because I also teach students from around the world. I also have students in Japan, in China, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, in Germany. I mean, to be honest, I have students from all around the world, and it's just amazing how much I have learnt from teaching. It's amazing how much they share things about their cultures, which I just never knew. Sometimes they may just say like a passing comment that they think isn't interesting, but for me it's so interesting. And sometimes getting them to explain their own culture is also a good way for them to practice their English. And I also learn about a culture too. So that's just a lovely part of being an ESL teacher. And very much connected to that, as well as learning about other cultures, I also learn about my own culture. So this may sound a little bit strange, as you may think, as a teacher, why do you learn about your own culture? It's your own culture. So the reason is that when you're teaching something, you are also learning at the same time. Any teacher will tell you that in teaching, you're also learning. So when I share a word, when I share an idiom or a phrase, there's many words which have a cultural background to them. So especially things like idioms or proverbs, which if I translate to Thai, or even if I try and explain them to a Thai person or a Japanese, it doesn't matter where they're from, it's maybe hard for them to understand this idiom. Because there's the cultural background, it's hard for them to understand why would we compare this thing to another thing. So for them, I would have to try and explain about English culture and British culture. And I love doing that. It's not that I don't believe that English culture is the best culture. It's definitely not. There isn't one best culture in all the world. It's just about culture exchange. And I think this exchange of cultures is such a beautiful thing, that I'm sharing things about British culture, they're sharing things about their own culture. And yeah, it's such a beautiful part of being a teacher. So let's move on to the next point. So I think that one of the reasons why I also love being a teacher is that as a traditional teacher, like when you're in a classroom, because most of my work isn't in a classroom, but if you're working in a school, you're often required to follow like a specific curriculum, and there isn't that much for creativity. But as an ESL teacher, for me, there's so much room for flexibility. There's so much room for me to choose my own curriculum. So I can choose basically what I want to teach. And for me, I love this freedom that I can choose. It means that all of my classes aren't exactly the same. Often I'm able to adapt to my students, which I absolutely love doing. It means that, what's interesting is that I could have 2 lessons that are planned exactly the same, and then I teach one student. Let's imagine it's a private student. I teach that one student this lesson and another student the lesson too. So it's the same lesson but taught at 2 different times. And it's so amazing how the 2 classes, the 2 lessons can be almost totally different depending on how the students kind of respond to my lesson. Because some students, they may struggle with certain activities. They may find things more interesting or less interesting. Often it depends on the student. So as a teacher, it's your job to adapt to the student and to adapt to their needs. It could be, we could be learning about something and then we end up talking about pronunciation, or it doesn't have to be, okay, this is the exact lesson and it has to be followed A, B, C, D, E. It's not like that. As a ESL teacher, there is definitely room for creativity. There's room to be adaptable depending on the level of students. Sometimes students can surprise you that you think, okay, this student's maybe a bit weaker, so you give them a weaker topic, but actually they do really, really well. So in that sense, you have to adapt. Okay, right, actually I'm going to make it harder by including this and adding this and taking this away. So that's the great part of it. And I actually remember when I first started training to be a teacher, I remember that was the part that actually scared me, the idea that no lesson would be the same. And yeah, that actually scared me at the beginning, that I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what if I don't have enough material? What if the students find it too difficult? What if the students don't like it? All of these things. But actually that's the great part of being a teacher. It just makes your job more interesting. And you learn as over the years go by, you learn what students tend to like and what they tend not to like so much. Obviously, students are different, but you can get a general feeling of, okay, students maybe tend to like more active lessons where they're speaking and practicing new vocabulary than maybe just memorizing vocabulary or whatever. But in general, I wouldn't do that to my students because I like to make my lessons as interesting and as interactive as possible. So, I mean, in general for me, yeah, my lessons have to be fun. They have to be interesting. For me, I think that as a teacher, that's your job, to keep the students involved, to make them feel like learning a language isn't boring. Learning a language isn't tiring. It should be a fun and exciting and interactive experience. And I think that the best teachers are teachers that are able to have a lesson and the students feel they come out of the class with more energy than when they went in. I think that if a student comes out of the class feeling tired, then that's obviously disappointing as a teacher. You want your students to maybe, sometimes students come in and they're tired or they're feeling a little bit negative. This happens all the time. I ask students at the beginning, like, oh, how are you? And they say like, oh, I'm quite tired. I've had work all day. So it's my job and it's my challenge, I guess. It is a challenge to lift up the spirits of the class and to make students feel like they're not learning, to make them learn. Obviously, they are learning, but to not have the feeling like, okay, I'm studying, I'm learning right. It shouldn't feel like they are actively studying. It should feel like they are just learning in a natural environment. So, that's again part of the challenge. And teaching isn't easy. It's definitely not easy. But for me, I love the challenge. Like I said, being a teacher, it's not perfect, but I do love the challenge of making my lessons as enjoyable and inspiring as possible for my students. And as a teacher, you will find that the more relaxed the students are, the more they learn. When a student is stressed, often when I have a student for the first time, I can just see in their eyes that they're maybe just like quite nervous about speaking English. And it's such a beautiful thing over the course of it. Well, it depends on the student, but yeah, over time and often quite quickly, students, they open up and you can just see them relax. I have a Japanese student and he learns with me every week. And I remember when I first started teaching him, he was very shy. I guess it's part of Japanese culture that they're very polite, very reserved. And then quite quickly, he opened up. And once he opened up, his English was also able to improve a lot as well, because he actually had a lot of knowledge already. He had the vocabulary, but he had just never had the opportunity to use this language. So once he opened up, he was able to relax, and it was actually I was able to notice actually he knows a lot already. And then since he's opened up, his English has really, really improved, and it's such, like I said, it's such a beautiful thing to see. So another reason why, actually this will have to be my last reason about why I love being a teacher. And this is that no 2 days are the same. I wake up and I do not know exactly what I'm going to expect. I often have new students, so I have to interact with new faces, with new people, with new personalities, and also different classes, different levels of people. So for me, I don't wake up and it's not a mundane job, like going in maybe to an office. For some people, maybe. For me, I wouldn't find that as motivating, let's say, as being a teacher, because with being a teacher, I could, like I said, no 2 days are the same. For me, it's just like a new experience every single day. Yes, it can be a little bit tiring, but I think the buzz, the feeling of helping people and inspiring people, also, it helps to lift my spirits and helps me to be full of energy as much as possible. So there's probably even more reasons than this, but I've tried to sum up the main reasons about why I love being a teacher so much. So those are the main reasons why I personally love being a teacher. So I'll be interested in knowing whether you would like to be a teacher, or whether it's a job that you think wouldn't maybe be suitable with your personality, or maybe you can tell me what job you do and whether you enjoy your job. So you can comment down below, and I'll be interested to read your comments. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, then please don't forget to like it and, of course, share it as well, so you can share the knowledge with other people and help other Thais or other people in general to practice listening to English. Hopefully you can maybe learn some new vocabulary. Hopefully in general it's just good practice for your English and that you're able to learn something new as well. So hopefully this was interesting for you. So yes, don't forget to comment, to like, to share, and everything. That would be perfect. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you will be listening to episode number 5. Bye bye.